I'm Hugh Bayley, the Labour MP for York. I've been the MP for about 18 years and always been in pretty close touch with the football club, which is an important part of the city.
And Hugh, what do you make of current progress on the new community stadium for the City of York?
Frankly, I wish it was going faster. York needs a league football club. I want to see the club back in the Football League. It will bring York to the attention of people every weekend then, and it will bring more away supporters to the city. As a tourist city, it'd be great to have people coming to York, and because it's a place like York, a lot of them will stay for the weekend. So I'm very strongly in favour of a new stadium, and to provide opportunities for the rugby league club as well, which I also keep in close touch with.
But in terms of what's happened so far, I mean, essentially, since the first issues with the ground came up, it's been 8 years. What do you make of what's happened in the meantime?
Well, I would like to see the council being more pushy. They have, of course, appointed a development director to make this happen. It's a big project, and it's going to take some time, but the clock is ticking. And for instance, I made representations to the Football Foundation, who provided a loan to York City to provide funding after the Bradford fire to provide an all-seater stadium. I was able to persuade them to stop the interest clocking up on the loan, but there is a date when that benefit will run out to the club, and it's important to secure that money from the Football Foundation because it's part of the overall cost of making the stadium happen.
The current date, which is in the minds of everyone, is May 2012, when that Football Foundation grant needs either renewing or some action needs to be taken. What chances do you think that something will happen within the next 2 years to get a new stadium on the...
Well, I've been talking to the council and saying we really must hit that deadline. Partly it's to do with funding, although if the deadline was to be missed, I'd obviously make representations to the government and to the Football Foundation to keep their funding there. But we really need to show there's real progress.
What role do you envisage the stadium having within the community, and how would that be implemented?
I think York could learn from some other towns, Lee in Lancashire, for instance, Warrington, which have both built a community stadium. It will do two things. It will draw in funding from commercial partners. One particular partner I'd like to see involved would be the National Health Service, who need to promote healthy lifestyles, and this would be one way to do it. I'd also like to see it as a community stadium that provides a venue for both football and rugby league, the two professional clubs we have in New York, and also with outside the stadium athletics facilities, and the ideal would be to find a site where you can provide all of that, together with a health club and other things which make people in York, old and young, identify with sport and healthy lifestyles.
Just the fact that's important. You mentioned the need to find funding, such as from the NHS. Do you support the use of public funds for this project, and where do you see them coming from?
If the NHS was to put in money, it would be to build a facility that they need to build somewhere in the community anyway, say a physiotherapy facility or a health centre. You wouldn't get money put in to support football per se, but if you can if you can come up with a deal where it's a win-win, where the health service gets a new facility that it needs anyway, and it can co-locate with the football club, you get some benefits both for the club and for the National Health Service.
What other sources of funding do you think there are that we could be targeting?
The most obvious source of funding is the equity that the club has within this site at Bootham Crescent, and it's important for the council to do whatever it can to make that worth as much as possible to the club in terms of planning permission. That's what the club can put in. The council can put in money because it's got the Huntington Stadium at the moment. It's not suitable for a professional football club with an athletics track inside the stadium, but that also could be redeveloped. And if you put both sets of money together with some commercial sponsorship from, as I say, the National Health Service or the private sector. Some of these community stadiums have had supermarkets, Tesco's as part of the development. You also in York have the advantage of being a major tourism conference venue, and that side of the development that possibly a hotel ought to form part of the overall package. And if you put them all together, it would be enough money for a real first-class stadium.
Hugh, you've been the MP since 1992, and since the stadium issue came up, could you say what you've been doing to help it along at national level?
I've been to see the Culture Secretary, Andy Burnham, when he did the job, Ben Bradshaw since then. I've also been in touch with the football authorities nationally to make sure that the funding streams which are available from within the sport remain available. For instance, as I was saying earlier, ensuring that the Football Foundation money remains available for York, and that the interest charges got suspended, which was something which was extremely important.
Well, I'm sure fans of both the rugby and the football clubs will be very pleased at that. Can you understand their frustration that it does just appear to be more talk, that while people are being briefed, that nothing...
More, with great respect, it's not more talk at all. Both clubs are in very close touch with me and extremely supportive of the things that I'm doing to try and make this project happen. And it needs to happen, it really does need to happen, because if it doesn't happen, then we'll lose a viable football club. And York, a city like York, needs a professional football club and a club that's back in the league. And the stadium is part of making that happen.
So how do we, as the people of York, as voters in the next election, make sure that our voice is heard and that this stadium is built? What should we be doing to show the will?
Well, this isn't a party political issue, but it is important with the council to get all the councillors from all parts of the city to back this as a priority. This at one level is a business, a vitally important business, and if another business in York was threatened, you get people from all parts of the political spectrum rallying behind it. But it's more than just a business. It's an iconic business. It's a bit like the Minster. It's inconceivable that York Minster would stop being the cathedral church for the north of England. It also ought to be inconceivable to everybody on the council from all political parties that we should lose a professional football club. I don't want to see it happen, and I want to see them as the people who have to provide the planning permission and have appointed the civil servant, if you like, the council official to plan the project. It's important for them to drive it ahead with a lot of energy.
So if the rugby league fans and the football fans and the general sports fans of York Central are considering why to vote for you and how you'll help their case for a new stadium, could you explain what you'll do if re-elected?
I'll carry on doing what I have been doing, working with the club to raise the profile of football and rugby league. For instance, I've got a campaign I'm running jointly with the club at the moment to get funding for a youth side, professional youth training here at York. They lost their funding when they fell out of the football league. I believe that funding should be re-established for the relatively small number of Conference League clubs that do professional training. There's 6 or 7 of them. York is one. I'll continue to work with them. In terms of the election, this is an issue I'll continue to fight on, but it's not the only thing that matters for people in York. Since Labour's been in power, we've increased the number of jobs in York Central by 16,000. We've doubled spending on schools, we've doubled spending on the National Health Service. That creates the sort of place that people want to invest in other businesses, which creates jobs, but it also ought to make people want to invest in sport for the city and the football club in particular.